Let's start the story by going down the pub. I'll be honest, I found myself there more often than not when times got tough. And for the shit year of 2017, I was questioning if I was becoming an alcoholic. I even knew the bartender's name, like he was my best friend, and I was given my own tab. Happy days. So it was a Sunday night, and thankfully the weekend parties had died off, and I liked Sundays for that reason. It was quiet. Or quieter than what a Friday and Saturday night would be. Sadly, it was absolutely freezing outside, so I really did debate heading on out before actually committing to it. Another good thing about Sundays is that because so many are hungover, going for a walk was somewhat an enjoyable escape. My route took me down through a local park to get to the pub, so it was nice to actually get some space and walk where I wanted to. By the time I got to the pub, it had started to rain. Thankfully, I got inside before I got wet, and the bartender gave me a typical wave and friendly smile, pointing down to a favourite drink of mine. I nodded with a smile and waved back, whilst walking over to him. We had the usual small talk, and things were pretty normal. There were a handful of people, but quiet, just how I liked it. But there was one man I hadn't noticed before, playing pool alone. Where I lived was a very quiet and secluded place, so it was like everyone knew everyone. So when I looked around and noticed him, of course, it caught my attention. I asked the bartender who he was, but he didn't know either. All I was told was that he had been playing pool alone for the past hour. Well, that soon stopped when he looked over at me, and we locked a gaze before he set the pool cue aside and walked on over. "Hi, I'm Vic. And you are?" I paused while I looked at his large, rough-looking hand that was held out to me, whilst also noticing his dark clothing, a hat on his head which covered a lot of the top, and a scarf that proceeded to cover parts of his mouth. Not interested. I know it was mean, but I get hit on by guys a lot, and all I wanted was to be alone. He got the picture though. He chuckled to himself and murmured he would be seeing me around as he walked off. Empty threats. That was something else I was accustomed to. Thankfully, the rest of the few hours I remained at the pub, I got exactly what I wanted. Peace and quiet. I knew it was time to go home. Noticing how much I had drunk by the tipsy feeling I felt when I stood, it was going to be an eventful walk home. The bartender had also offered to give me a lift home, as he lived close by, but I declined, more just because I tried to be polite, even if my past statement to that stranger would say otherwise. Now, I said before that I had to walk through a park to get to the pub, which meant I would need to do the same going home. But there was another way through streets. The only downside was that it took almost double the time. So that was the option I took. Best be safe, right? I got home safely, albeit a little bit tired now. I wasn't sure if I had locked the front door or not, but I passed out on the sofa. Somehow, I heard sounds around my home, like cupboards opening and closing, doors being opened and closed, and extremely slowly I came around to these noises and slowly opened my eyes. What I saw though was a bartender kneeling before me, whispering my name whilst tapping me on my shoulder. I jumped back as I really did not expect to see him. He continues whispering to me, putting his finger to his lips. "You left your phone at the bar. I came to drop it over, but I saw someone breaking into your home. I'm pretty sure they're upstairs." He put his finger to his lips again and pointed to the bedroom above the living room, That was my room. I sat up as we both listened. He told me that he called the police and that they were on the way, but we had to get out. That's when we heard them moving around the room and stepping out onto the landing. With quick thinking, I told him to go hide, whilst I pretended to be asleep still. He hated the idea, and there was a lot of back and forth very abruptly before finally agreeing, and I was shitting myself. But there was nothing else to be done. He was coming, and was coming quickly. So the bartender hid behind the door, and we waited. I heard the heavy footsteps touch down on the ground floor, and the suspense was intense. My heart was pounding. I could feel my body start to shiver with adrenaline. I took a deep breath and hoped the thin blanket would help hide it. Then I could feel his breath on my face as he knelt beside me. "I told you I would see you again, you stupid little bitch. I was being nice." I could feel his fingers caress my face. "I hate girls like you. You'll learn to treat guys with respect." Things went silent for a moment before I could feel him get on top of me. I could hear him undo his button and pull his zip down. The silence in the room was unbelievable. I tried to move a little, but as soon as I felt his hand press down, I knew I was pinned. Then the flashes of police lights came into view, and I heard the bartender frantically push the door from him and rip off this man from the pub earlier. I was swiftly able to get up and gave him a few slaps as the bartender held him down. The police knocked on the door and I ran to let them in. They quickly arrested the man and found him to be carrying a knife. Not only that, but his car had a shovel, some black bags, and a rope. That night, after everyone left, I cried for hours. I was still shaken at the thought of what could have happened if it weren't for the police and the bartender. I've since moved home, and only very occasionally pop into the same pub to say hello. I also drive everywhere instead of walking. Stay safe, and keep your wits about you. So we have all thought that our closest friends are our actual friends. Well, let me tell you that what you may think might be completely wrong. And let me explain what happened to me. My closest friend of almost 10 years was someone I turned to for almost everything. We were like family. We spent a lot of time together, as our families were also close. So, one night we went out for food, and then hit a local cinema. It was something we did a lot, and nothing was out of the ordinary. Whilst in the movies though, things got a little weird. For instance, instead of sharing the popcorn, they refused and moved the popcorn to the other seat, so it was out of my reach. Things like this didn't bother me too much, but I also noticed they were on the phone texting quite a bit. I asked them very jokingly to turn it off, cause we were in the cinema, but they ended up standing and leaving. I thought they had gone to the bathroom, so I didn't do much in terms of chasing after them. It was a little odd, as they were usually very friendly, kind, and thoughtful to others. But maybe they were just having a bad day. Just to add a little bit more context, my name is Ash. I'm a girl. And my closest friend is Sam, who is a guy. No, we have never dated, never seen each other in that way either, and we both live in the UK. So the movie finishes, and I ask him if he's alright. But they just huff as we continue on walking to my car. Sam didn't want to bring his car this time, and on the way back to the car park, he seemed to be in a rush, looking down at his phone all the time. I quickly kept up with him, as he said he needed to be dropped off at a friend's. No problem. We headed off and quickly found myself driving down country roads. The small talk was painful, and in the end we just sat in silence. Never did I think my life would almost come to an end that night. That was until I saw Sam lean over and grab the steering wheel, yanking it towards him as the car skidded off the road whilst going around 50 miles per hour. We hit a ditch full force and the car started flipping over. We both had our seatbelts on, and by the time it had stopped upside down, everything around me was blurry. I couldn't make much out. My arms were dangling like loose limbs, and I could feel blood pouring from my head. Dazing in and out of consciousness, I remember seeing Sam trying to get the seatbelt off, whilst hearing another voice talking to him. They were whispering, and I am positive I had heard them ask if they should help me too. But Sam said no, and to leave me as I was a goner, and it wasn't part of the plan. A few grunts, pause, and small talks later, I found myself back awake, in complete silence. I have no idea how long I was left like it, but I was quickly saved by the police as they patrolled those roads quite often. Passing in and out of consciousness, I cannot remember much, but what I do remember is waking up in hospital, bandages and an operation later for a few broken ribs. The police sat and talked with me, saying they arrested Sam but couldn't find his accomplice. I couldn't help them as I didn't know much. They said that Sam would be trialed for attempted murder, and now I sit in bed knowing that soon enough I will have to face him in court. Believe me when I say, still in pain, lying in a hospital bed, dosed up on pills, you may think they are your closest friends, but how well do you actually know them?